Traditionally and historically, in almost all societies around the world, women have been considered inferior to men. The result of that has been women being used and abused by those who have power in society.
How did it go today, Joe?
All right. How was your day?
Oh, pretty quiet. I did the washing this morning. Cleaned the house. And I took Junior to the dentist. And did the shopping.
Women have had to fight since the beginning of times for basic human rights. And although women have had some significant progress, there is still a long road ahead. The most dangerous battle faced by women for centuries has been dealing with domestic violence. According to the UN, 1 in 3 women in the world will experience physical or sexual abuse in their lifetime. My name is Judy Polanco, and this documentary is directly inspired by the events of my childhood. I'd often hear and see my father physically and verbally abuse my mom. This was normal. I'd hear other women screaming for their lives through the walls, being beat in private. Everyone knew what was happening and no one stopped it.
It was really hard in my early teenage years to understand what domestic violence was. Some of my daughter's first words were bitch and slime ball. And that's when I knew I had to get the kids away from the situation. I felt like I was on an episode of a TV show where I was so close to being a victim on a stretcher. They took pictures of my neck and my body in front of my children. And I received a warning that if I had called the cops one more time after my assault, that I had been at risk of losing my children. And they are more important to me than saving a relationship.
I told him I was leaving. He gave me a black eye. That's when he gave me a black eye. And that's when I said I was done. And as I'm walking down the steps with my daughter, he decides to push me with my daughter in my hands at 1 month old. Luckily, I held on so tight to her that it caused her no harm. But at that moment, when it was like fight or flight.
What happened was that my father was drunk. He had recently lost his job, and I guess that was his way of dealing with it. So I had been staying in a different room of the house, and he would keep coming into the room, and so instead of going away, I turned towards him. That essentially changed the nature of the conflict. I was able to move towards him. He backed up, and then we were next to my mother's china cabinet. So then I remember seeing a vase, then I remember feeling like a glass curvature in my hand. And then his face was no longer above me, it was below. So I'm assuming that the impact of the strike knocked him down. What I found out later was that I had cracked his skull open with the vase. And finally, we got on the front porch. There was a neighbor there, and I asked the neighbor to call 911. And I was able to leave the house, and I did not take anything with me. I had no plan. I took my phone, my wallet, and I went to a hotel. And then I started getting phone calls along the lines of, this is the NYPD, there's a warrant out for your arrest, blah, blah, blah. And this would go on for weeks. And a friend of mine who's a detective, he told me that if there's a domestic violence incident, then automatically whoever does the most damage is viewed as the perpetrator.
Every year, more than 3 million children witness domestic violence in their homes. Boys who witness domestic violence are twice as likely to abuse their own partners and children when they become adults.
I don't know what's wrong with that boy.
Now, don't start worrying about Paul. He's coming along fine.
No, he isn't.
Females, on the other hand, are twice as likely to become domestic violence victims.
When I was 15, one night there was a party. And there was this guy, he was like a mutual friend of everybody. Leading up to the events before that night, it was maybe like a few months of, we had the same friends, we hung out at the same places. I've been in his car, I've thought we were friends. In that time period, I smoked a lot of like marijuana, and that was like my thing. So he talked to me at the party and said like, would you want to come smoke with us and whatever? And I was like, yeah, possibly, I don't know. I'm going back to my friend's house. I'll let you know. So he texted me, where are you? And I thought he was gonna be with like a group of people. And I was like, I'm at my friend's house. I don't want to say her name. And I told her, I was like, hey, can I meet Joe in your basement? I was like, I don't know if you want to smoke or something, but maybe you can come down. And I even said to her, like, if you don't hear from me in a few minutes, like, come down. Because I just had like a feeling. And there was a couch. There was this long tan couch. And I remember I sat on one end and he sat on the other. Like he sat first, so I made sure to like sit like away because I didn't want to give him the impression that like I want to sleep with you. I was 15. So he just leaned over and started kissing me. And I didn't pull away at first because I didn't know really what to do. I wasn't like kissing back, but like I didn't know what to do. And then he got really forceful and just like pinned me down to the point where like I couldn't breathe for like a good 10 seconds. And I started like crying, like trying to say like, stop, like, and I couldn't. And I remember like laying underneath him because he was like a bigger guy. Like he wasn't like huge, but he was like a bigger guy. I was much smaller when I was 15 than I am now, and I was like laying under him and I had my hands up like this on his chest and I kept trying to like go into a bridge. Like I remember like bridging my body up and trying to like push him off of me and wasn't stopping. And he did, obviously there was penetration involved. And I kind of had that like fight for survival moment because he was laughing. I started like trying to like bite his hand and I got it and he like pulled away and then I like everything in me, like I remember I was wailing like a fish out of water, just trying to like use everything in me. It was like that like fight for survival moment of like I have to get this person off me. So I did. He fell off the couch and then I said, get the F out of here. I'll never forget, he had his shoe was like by the couch and I said, you forgot your shoe, and then I threw it at him and he literally left without his shoe.
Studies show that domestic violence is the leading cause of injury to women, more than car accidents, muggings, and rapes combined. Every year, 1 in 3 women who are victims of homicide are murdered by current or former partners.
I left on my own, but through consistency, through therapy, through talking and getting it out, what are you most scared of, is the best way, because someone will tell you that they have your back. But if you're keeping all your fears inside, there's but so much help you're gonna get. Started out in a few shelters with nothing. I had no clothes, I had Pampers and a shopping cart, but I was scared. How am I gonna eat? How am I going to show my girls that this is our new norm? But I was truly afraid to start over 5, 6, 7 times again. But the 15th time, it helped. It's not always gonna work the first time because, again, a lot of people start out without having these school. They're worried about what they're gonna do with their car, their bills, but it's important to just try.
There's no life manual. We have to kind of wing it a lot of the times. So it's the same situation for that. Like, you have to find their inner strength, your willpower, your voice. You have to find that within you and tell yourself, like, do you want to live? Do you want to live? Do you want to continue to be in this situation, or do you want happiness? It's like you have to really weigh your options, because you're not always going to have the support that you need.
The people who are the most vulnerable are the youngest and have the smallest worlds in a way, right? There's your family and there's school, right? You don't really have this like strong social networks, or you're unlikely to have acquaintances all over the place who would tell you meaningful information. So I do hope that if somebody hears this and this person is a child, whether it's a boy or a girl, just to know that like you don't have to stay there.
There's no one to tell me that I can't go. There's no one to tell me, hey, be back by a certain time. I don't even have shelter restrictions right now, so I'm living really peacefully, as best as I could. I'm making a home where, at least in my four walls, I'm head of household. I keep saying these things when I walk out every day. I'm head of household, I'm responsible. My kids come first, and a lot of other people's matters and moods and opinions, I can't let that weigh me down too much. I start over every day, just brand new and fresh.
We need more stories by women about the violence and injustice we suffer. I want to raise my daughters in a world better than the one I grew up in. I want them to know they can achieve anything they put their minds to. I don't want them to inherit my trauma or the trauma of women from generations before. The cycle needs to stop. We need to fight politically, socially, and culturally, and we have to take every means and opportunity to point out that domestic violence is not acceptable. Enough is enough. Women birth humanity, and we demand dignity, love, and respect. If I can stop one little girl from suffering like the women in my life suffered, I think I will have made a difference.
My name is Marquis, and I survived.
My name is Anastasia, and I survived.
My name is Victoria, and I survived.
My name is Jenny, and I survived.